But I want to go to another step, and this is how, unfortunately, I have a small book. It's not a small book, it's a very interesting book of a lot of arguments that our sages had between 1100 till 1500 with a lot of Christians. I don't know if you know, but there was a lot of debates between the Hebrew sages, the biggest Hebrew sages, and the Christian people. And
the Ramban.
Here, the Ramban, for example, Yosef Kimchi, the Ben Benisti, it's a book, it's an interesting book. It's really interesting to read it. And one of the main, I will say, differences that there's a lot of debates and questions and discussions between the Hebrew sages and the Christian sages is the question, is it possible that someone is going to do a sin and his kids are going to pay for the sins that the father did? Okay, because the main, I will say it like that, the main fundamental issue of the Christian world is to say that Adam and Eve did a very big sin. Okay, they took a bite from this apple,
and their whole original sin doctrine. Yeah,
we need someone like we are still to today paying for the sin that they did, and we need someone like Jesus that will come and rescue us from the sin that they did. And this is something that in the Hebrew tradition we can't accept.
16. Fathers shall not be put to death because of sons, nor shall sons be put to death because of fathers. Each man shall be put to death for his own transgression.
Very simple. It's written down, loud and clear. Now we're starting to realize why it was not allowed to learn the Old Testament. It's only the beginning. King 2, chapter 14, about a very important king. His name is Joash. And he was 25 years old. 25 years old. And he did the right in the eyes of God. Not like his father, but there was still something with the problem.
5. And it was when the kingdom became well established in his hand that he slew his servants who had assassinated his father. But the sons of the assassins he did not execute, as it is written in the book of the Torah of Moses, which the Lord commanded, saying, Fathers shall not be put to death for the sons, nor shall sons be put to death for the fathers, but each man shall be put to death for his own sin.
You're starting to realize why it wasn't allowed to read this this Old Testament. It's very clear. Adam and Eve did a sin. They are supposed to pay for their sins. It's not related to the sins of all of others. It's not that we are. In a moment, I will explain what happened with Adam and Eve. I'm going to be very, I will say, clear, and I'm not going to hide anything. I'm going to ask on myself things. I'm going to answer. We're going to see how the Hebrew sages learned what is happening in Abraham. But I'm teaching here in the way that it will also express the fundamental ideas of the Hebrew sages and how we got in this oral understanding what to do. What we see here is very clear. Each one of us is paying for his own behavior. No one is paying for the behavior of his fathers. Not it. It won't happen. Okay? This is a principle of the Bible. We can see this again. Now we see here an example of a king, something like 800 years after Moses gave the Bible, and he's quoting a verse that we have in Deuteronomy, okay? In Deuteronomy here, 16, that you're not allowed to punish one generation for the sins of the generation before that. Let's read it also in Yechezkel. Read verses 18, 19, and 20.
18. But his father, because he illegally suppressed, committed robbery against his brother, and did what is not good among his people, behold, he shall die for his iniquity. Yet you say, why does the son not bear with the sin of the father? But the son has practiced justice and righteousness. He has kept all my laws, and he carries them out. He shall surely live.
20 also is very important.
And the soul that sins, it shall die. A son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, and a father shall not bear the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon himself, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon himself.
Fine. Of course, the next verse will be that God is waiting that also the wicked men will do repentance, and God will accept him and everything else. But first of all, there's a very clear explanation, very clear thing, that the principle is the one who is doing the sins is going to pay for the sins that he did. One who is not doing the sins, even though if it's his son or something else, his destiny, he is not going to pay for his sin, for the sins of his father, okay? Every explanation that is trying to roll over from a sin of one generation towards another generation is not acceptable in the Hebrew tradition. This is a very important point. Therefore, now when we are learning with Abraham, okay, when Abraham is saying, how will I know that I will inherit this land? There are people who are trying to explain, okay, that when God is saying to him, you asked, how will you know? This is what you asked, how will you know? Not a problem. Sure, you will surely know, okay? And you're going to get punishment for what you asked, and your kids are going to be slaves for 400 years. This is not the explanation of what's happening here. And I need to explain what is happening here. But one of the explanations that, especially that is coming from, not from the Hebrew tradition, is to try to explain that the reason why we got enslaved for 400 years was because Abraham already asked, or was with a doubt. Abraham wasn't with a doubt. Abraham is asking here something else, and we need to understand what he's asking. I will explain this for a moment. What does have moving from one generation to another generation is not the behavior of one generation, but it's more the characterism from one generation to another generation. I will explain this a bit more. When someone have some sort of characterism and it's inside him, and this is something that is teaching his kids on the same way of characterism, it might bring his kids that they will have much more hard a way to change their way of life, because they already inherited some of the characterism of their fathers.